Hello there. In this video we're going to look on ecosystem population and specifically how using the brush and how use it ecosystem painter to work inside the Vue. I remember first time when this feature was kind of showing and announced inside the Vue, it was almost revolutionary inside the 3D world because almost none of applications can do even closer for what Vue can do. And it still be one of the top tool to create truly artistic approach to how you create in 3D. Well, let's start with the work on this. For the beginning, we'll go and create terrain, and this is just a basic terrain. The shape, it doesn't matter, it's just a place where we're going and experiment with our brushes. So I'm taking camera, positioning kind of on an angle a little bit on our terrain so we can preview what's going on here. Then next what we need to do is select our terrain, okay, and maybe like right there, and we're going to double click, open material editor. Inside the material editor we're going to create ecosystem layer. For this, let's just create normal layer, and by default it will create a simple layer. Next, in drop down we need going to is select ecosystem and particles. So you'll notice now it will create for our system. Next, what we want to do is add some instance with what we want to paint, because it will be like a brush in three-dimensional world when we can paint instance of object or plants. For this, we'll go click add item. And you'll notice right here we can have it rocks, plants, object or other things. We'll just go and select the plant, and from the plant we'll just select something with low resolution, and I'm going to select maybe a couple of three different sizes. Okay, let's go click OK, and the Windows just was inform us that is a plant in the plant factory format, which is very high resolution, add more details, but it's ultra realistic, and beside, if it's done with specific functions, it can grow, change in the seasons or age. It's like living 3D organism, very cool things. Okay, it's take a little bit time to upload it, and right here you can see we have a few instances. Notice on the instance we have the presence where we can change how much amount we wanted. Just small tip, if you type like you want, for example, much of this, you put 50, both of them decreasing. However, if you decrease another ones, it may affect all of this because you're working 100%. It's what it is. It cannot be 110, yes. So because 100%, if you have it 150 and 50, other one will be 0, but you cannot have it like 65 and 65%. So you need everything will distributed between those 100%. Well, but for us, actually, even this one won't matter right now because we're going to paint. And the paint, I'm going to zoom in closer to our terrain in this window so we can preview. And we also have it preview on our active camera. Next, I'm going to click on the icon, well, on a button called Paint. And as I'm clicking, we have opening this painting tool. Notice it was having also brush there. We'll look on this later. So let's look very fast on environment, what we have here. And you can see we have it on the top, the selections. One, it is a brush paint, it's what we want to do. We also can deselect and select single instance, but not in this case because single instance or select ecosystem, it's not enabled. We don't have any yet painting for this. Next to this, we have another options. One of them, it is paint only on the selected objects. It's meaning, well, like right here, we have it select our terrain. And this is paint just on this terrain if we enable. Sometimes you may have two terrains that intersect each other, and when you paint, you maybe want paint on both of them to make the seamless, this where they intersect be seamless. So in this case, you would want to be sure it's disabled. But if for some reason you want just paint only on that object, then you want to be sure this is enabled. Well, and next we have it restrict to underline object. That's what we wanted. Otherwise, it may go down and paint just on our main terrain, which we don't need it. And we have it to restrict to selected selected instance. This is in case if we select specific instance and we don't want to use any other ones, we can use. So this is global elements. We also some of this instance it can be changed. If you look down below right here, you also have it other ones populate only selected items, so not necessarily instance but items that inside our selections. And currently we have these 3 pine trees or fir trees. It's the same species but in different kind of sizes, maturity, we can say this. Well, okay, next to this we have it clean all. Right now disable. Again, we don't have it any ecosystem, but we can clear here and show brush editor, which we'll look on this later in this video. Under this we have the brush presets. Some of them the default, but also you can create your own brush presets or your own brushes and use here, so it will be very easy access. Well, we'll look on this specifically on this 4 already as example a little bit later in video. So right here we can select all different elements. So let's start with our population, and this is simple, straightforward. It is populating our ecosystem. As we're selecting specific brush preset in the global settings, it will change to represent what properties the specific selections have. In this case we have airbrush style, and it's most of the time it's what we wanted. Also invert brush, or not invert, we'll just keep it normal. Brush radius, it's represent how wide and big brush can be, paint our area. Below we have it flow, and flow representations of the higher density to the edge, where it will be less density. So if sorry, it's fallout. Flow will represent how much will output instance at the same time, and this way we can have it very much, just put it as much as it can on beginning, or make it slightly brush strokes. Fallout is what representing from the density population to the edge, how much, or gradient. Just imagine gradient, it's like a lot of population, less, and nothing. So how far this fallout will go, very short or a longer distance. So we can put it like on the middle here. I'm keeping brush flow on 1 because I want just, for example, showing bigger impact, and it's just easy to watch. But usually when I work, brush flow for personal will be a little bit lower, somewhere around like around here 0.1 or something. Next, under below we have a scale, which is additional parameters in this case, and you can see it's a general scale. It does not scale by maturity, it's scaled by the size, just general size of the object. And also we have it limited depth, which allowed us how much of the instance will populate in specific and brush radius. You can also have it uncheck limited density. In this case, you will populate as much you can and just keep on populating. Work very well if you have it, for example, stacking enable, and you can build like mountains out of rocks, or you can build, for example, high population on small. In some cases, when I work with grass, for example, in some areas you want to maybe higher density on the grass or flowers, then you want to uncheck that option. Well, let's go ahead and start painting. I select my objects, and you notice as I'm painting, it's showing on my screen populations here, and as well in my active camera, we start showing the elements where I'm painting. Notice on different sizes, position, because it's not just static, it's actually generating based on different species, which is almost every tree. If we look closer here, I guarantee you they will be look different, which is kind of what you'll see in the nature. It's why power of this ecosystem. Well, next let's go ahead and increase our density, and notice if I go with higher density, we obviously will create much more plants here. So the density is important. You can modify some of the density or flow based if you're using the touch sensitive. So example, you'll notice as we're working on the sliders, on the sides we also have those icons, and it's showing like triangle on a flat. Just imagine it's like tip of the pen. So this meaning it's a pressure sensitive. If you have it like a Vicom pad or other things, and you start painting, you can, for example, just click and says now this value of brush flow will affect how much I'm pressing. So if I press hard, it's a harder flow, more plans, or if I just slightly press, it just put it like 1 to instant. So it's a very useful if you're using Vicom pen or any other pressure sensitive. Okay, so right there we actually painting, we can kind of created our ecosystem. A small tip, sometimes if you have too many of the plants around and you just click different type of the plants and maybe a little bit low on the resources on your computer, like memory, video memory, then sometimes you click and you don't see any result. In this case, you want just click, hold it for a little bit, let the actual Vue pre-caching that stuff, and after, when you start painting, you can move your brush around and you see it will populate just fine. So it's just a little bit lag in some situations happening, but usually, like right there, you can see as I'm painting, you can see real life it's painting and does all the stuff. Okay, well, let's look next. What we have, it's eraser, and eraser is just what it does. It's erase the instance that we created. So very simple, straightforward tool. Notice as I did some modification and I changed between presets, it's asked me if I want to save this preset, which kind of, you can do this. You can customize totally your preset, save it and use it in the future, same as brushes. Okay, next we have it is single instant in this case. And if you notice, we can just go select one, like for example this plant, and I can just place it. So I can just click and place it single instance right there. That's become very useful if, for example, you painted, but you know, some special tree you maybe want to put it up front or some other areas, then you can select just single instance and go put it this instance in an area you want it. For example, right there, I put it some instance and it's creating them. And of course, you can select which one you want it as well, because a single, we don't have it kind of parameters, but we do have it additional parameters for the scale. So next we have it paint, and what paint does, it's change color on our plants, but it's not just replace color, it's actually hue shifting. So let's write right here, we have it our normal brush fallout, but we have it color, and the color I'm going to just select a red color, and I'm painting on the side right there. You can see it's kind of changed colors, yes, but as I'm going, it's not instantly changing, it's kind of shifting hue on them. And in their preview, you can see it's have it like purplish color and a little bit more orangey. So it is shifting hue from my selected color to other through the palette. So it's kind of very nice way to blend. Work perfectly if you want to create like green area, in some areas maybe dead brownish or yellow with a fall. So you can play with this and just paint around with different colors. The next what we have, it's a scale. And a scale, it does not change maturity of the tree, and as I said before, because many ecosystem plants, they actually can grow. They have special properties to says change in time as you growing 3, 4, 5 years plant, how you look. So that is one, and some of them will increase size and scale. That is not related to any of this. This is purely just take an object and scale up or down with all properties same, with the same exactly look. It's work very well if, for example, I want to create like wave, maybe shorter than front, taller and tall in the beginning, so I can do this way. So in this case, I can just select brush and right here start scaling, and you notice as I'm scale, they're increasing in size. Okay, next we also, by the way, you can invert here. If you invert, obviously it will do opposite, it's make them smaller. So it's a scale can go both ways. Okay, next we have it a lean, and lean is just take your plants straight and it will go them up or down differential. So for this, in our, we have it same global setting on a brush, but we have it also the axis. So I can apply axis, and this will be careful because if you put it too much, it will lean just on the ground. And I done this before, they just like flat, like almost in a Tungus meteor when it's blow up and all plants around was flat on the ground. But this way you can adjust them and you can plan, and see right here they lay down, and lay down is a reason is to effect my brush flow very high. So it's what I say, you want to have very low brush flow for this, and maybe set like about 5-8 degrees. So then you can see as I'm start doing with the brush flow, the plants will kind of lean more. Very nice way to do if you want to lean around the river, like trees maybe going towards this, or on a cliff or other things, so you can do that way. Well, for the next one, let's go clean up. So I'm going to clean up this palette. We'll go again populate, and I'm just going with populate with different oh, okay, see my flow is low. Yes, I want to pop up my flow a little bit high. So we kind of populate all over the place here. There you go. We have plenty of the plants now to work more around. So our next one is a drag. And drag, you can see I create and I start dragging, and that's what it does. It's almost like a smudge tool inside of Photoshop. You click and you drag and take populations and drag around. Move a little bit different, because flow, it's kind of the drag kind of take and dragging like all viscosity kind of harder. With move, you just select area and you kind of try to move. So it's really work a little bit different. Think, how I say it is, one drag will be more like if you're in an oil kind of, this viscosity kind of dragging smoother, and move it just more take and move area around. It does, because our fallout is very high, it will affect less on the edges. So in some cases will be somewhat look almost similar to the drag, but it's not. If we disable like fallout, you can see it's like, see, it's harder, it's move much more. So just a couple different ways to affecting our plants. The other one's kind of cool, and it's called Jigger position. So sometimes when you place it elements and they look same, you want to randomize them, and that's what it does. So Jigger, if you look right here, you just jigger them around. So add and distributed them randomly. This and combination with change orientation, and you can see right here it's actually change orientation as well. They work very well if you work with a more static type of plants. For example, if you use plants like from X frog or other things, which is look very similar because they are static, but you can trick a little bit them to look different by rotating and jiggering sizes and change. So these will tools which help you to do that. Next, what we have here, it is attraction. It's like almost opposite from when distributors bring everything together. As well, keep in mind, if you have it invert, it's do opposite, so it will push them. Almost any of those you can invert, and this effector will have it opposite action from what it is. So you don't need it attractions and pull out. You can do with same tool if you just use it invert. Well, we have it also magnet, which kind of take and bring and drag after. The two other ones, very cool options, because they allowed us to align the grid. So let me go ahead, select one, and you can see as I'm going align, it's actually realign them. Well, let's erase, let's create new, so we can preview a little bit better. And right here, I'm just painting a lot of, so we paint right there, and you see how they're all randomly positioned. So if I take my align tool, okay, and I am increasing size and I start aligning, you'll notice how they start realigning. Look on this, they're just positioning themselves in a properly grid. And well, in position in a grid, it's mean they're aligned by based on your X and Y spacing as you specify. This has become very useful if you try to create like on a farm, you know how the farming and those lines. So you can do this, you can take the plants like hay or a winery, maybe grapes or something, and you want to put them in line, so you can align them going in this. And you can also do same things like in a city. If you want to create city blocks, you can, with this tool, you can same in an ecosystem just to realign them so they all will be aligned properly. Same thing, so you have it with a rake. Different is align, just going with X, Y, and rake, it will follow the positioning of your brush. So if I'm going around, you can see it is like lines going follow my rake. We also have it ripples, and ripples is do precisely, it's what this says. They create like circles and ripples around this. So very cool, you can create this. And by the way, don't double time click on terrain, because it will open terrain editor, and then after we need to close this. Well, and next we have it lower and raise. This is a lower and raise ecosystem or population we're selecting from the object to which is assigned. So it's like almost X, and it's a change positioning in our upper axis. So for example, if we take rise and just go right there and click on raise, you'll notice the plants, see, it start floating. They're just floating off the ground, which is kind of, see, right there. In some instance, maybe you want to use this, so they're all floating, but also rocks, maybe, I don't know, water, particles, some other things, maybe leaves you want to float. Just select, and you notice right there I was selecting one, so if I select all of them, they all will be floating. And you can just go down below right there with populate only select items, or affecting only selected items. If we select instance, then you can say just put leaves on the ground, and with this tool you can elevate them a little bit and make sure like leaves floating in the air without using any particle systems, so you can utilize very fast. And it will be static, so they won't be changing, and constantly floating in the air. So it's another way. Same things if you want lower, is do similar things, only put down. Sometimes maybe if you have a population with rocks, and rocks, they're sometimes just sitting on the top, and what's happening, you need to go almost inside population system and specify drop down how much. But if you paint with tools, you can same take rocks and just slightly put them underground so they look more natural. So this way you will probably want to use these two tools. The next, it's tornado, and it does what it says. Look, it's just creating, twist it around and creating tornadoes. Interesting effect. You can also work with some other object, maybe clouds kind of around this with other elements to create truly tornado. But if you do this kind of like increase tornado and it going up, and we'll just go create up, so we can almost create this tornado swirling and going up right there, and creating like twisted something pick up. So very cool effect. Next we have it is color and scaling. So this way we can also take similar what we done before. We'll have it some color, and we say, hey, increase scale on this. But as it increasing scale, it's also applying hue shifting. So the bigger plants will have a different little bit colors. Interesting way to do it. You can do with a population, but again, this does not change maturity. Again, it's just a scale up general, so it will apply to the rocks, to other objects and other elements. The next we have to rotate, and it does precisely what it says, how much you want to rotate. So it's rotated object around. Very good if you see very similar populations and you want to change maybe a little bit to make randomizations look, so you can use those. So this is our basic preset. One of them, scale and color, was kind of combination, but generally they usually have it only one options. You can modify and add them together. You can have it more complex options in this way, and by doing you can create your custom brushes. So let me show you. Right here we have it 4 different brushes, and some of them like autumn forest, spring forest, and other things. So let me go ahead and delete all of this instance. So I have no instance right now. You can see right here in my ecosystem. And if I click on one of this brush, what's happening, it's preloading those plants. Notice this. So it's meaning you can create a brush which already have their own plants, combination of plants you want to use it. For example, you want to do like alpine mountains. Yes, anyone with a grass, flower, so you can combine and create this just a brush for your own project in the future if you want to use it. So of course, as we select this, and we'll have it paint, select tool on paint, and as we're going, notice right there, see it's changed colors, size, and it's painting all this kind of with autumn colors for me to use with all these plants. Well, this is part of the custom brushes. And let's look what we can do with those. By clicking on icon brush, we can go to brush editor, and currently in this brush editor you can see we have our first icon, and you can change, you can preload it image and change image for your brush if you want it. You also change name if you want whatever for your customized brush. We're also using general or environment. We'll just look on general first and then environment tab later. And this is effectors. Effectors, if you remember, this is all, it's what they call effectors. So it's a attraction, size, raise, all of this. This is type of the effectors. And there where we can add them. You don't necessarily need to have just one effector. If you click on a new, we can add additional like coloring. So now we have 2 different effectors which work together. And that will create a more complex brush in our case. Also, as you select different effector, the different properties will appear. Some of those properties a little bit more than what we have it in another tab. For example, if we go right here, brush, you notice as the global, we have it airbrush, inverse brush, flow, and fallout. But if we're going in edit brush, right here we also have a direction from surface, use the ecosystem population rule. So it's a little bit more to this when you create a brush. You can create much more complexity than available in other just brushes or effectors. As well, you notice it's have an arrow, so you can actually go ahead and showing this in Echo Painter. If you create your own brush, you enable, and then this property will appear here as you're working with this. So this is your creation your brush, and we have flow, scale, change of the color, direction from surface, again in degrees. We have it use the ecosystem population rules, and remember those rules is you can apply, like for example clumping together, going so much under surface, you remember like with the rocks, or for example ecosystem if you want don't go above this altitude, and all of these rules you can apply when you work with your ecosystem material. So you can apply those rules here, which is kind of nice because you have quite a bit of rules inside the itself material editor. Next, max stack. So this is stacking in a view. Right now what we saw, we planned kind of paint on a single plane, but ecosystem can be stackable. So it's meaning one rock can go on the top of another, and as you're stacking, you can create like almost Goblin Valley, stackable rocks. And this way you can say how many of those objects can stack together. That's meaning one on top of another. If you don't have it, you literally can create a mountain out of rocks just with painting ecosystem. So it will be in three-dimensional, not just a flat single two-dimensional. And of course we have it our limit maximum rotations allowed, how many on a plans, a limited density, remember like before. We also have it hug underline materials, so it's kind of going around a little bit. And next one is a fallout filter. It is from most dense to less. It's how it's going right now. You can see it's a little bit curvy, so it's like a lot of population and drop very fast, but you can have it a linear drop out or other things. Mask is allowed how the brush populated. So for example, if we enable mask and selecting for example this, you'll notice it is says in those areas with white areas, it's where maximum population. So it says in white areas populate and black avoid. So we can create all this distribution kind of fun maps with just masking on our brushes. And I done before, kind of very cool because you can have it like rocks and a footprint of animal and just do it, and you can see like a footprint of animals on the ground made from rocks. So kind of fun things to do. Remember, black is no populations and white is population. Same what you can find in a density tab inside the ecosystem and materials. Okay, next where we have it, it's a force settings, and force it's meaning if we enable airbrush or radius or other things, those will be forced when people start using as a brush as you save it. So this is kind of cool preset. Next, let's look fast on the environmental. And environmental, it's the same what we have it in our material editor, where we have it altitude, slope restraint, and orientation. They work very well. If, for example, I want to paint snow balls or something, yes, on a mountain, and I can say, hey, this altitude, and don't put it on a south side. So all this kind of adjustments I can apply here, and this will go with my brush. After this, you save your brush and you can reuse it. It's actually very useful. Right here on the bottom, you can see new brush, create, save, or preloaded. And preloaded, some people already have it. I have it in my own collections. I think it's Patreon as well, of the brushes. So you can preload it and just use them and save you time on creating, and just give it ideas what you can do with those brushes. So this is kind of a very interesting way to approach Vue by using ecosystem brushes to paint on. But wait, there is a more. Okay, so right here we kind of look on this interface. Let's close this interface, and we'll also close our material editor. And so far we'll look to paint on terrain. And as we paint on terrain, we move around, and you can see ecosystem also moving with terrain because we says lock or paint with this material. But here's other things we can do. If we don't select material, on the top we also have an ecosystem ability. And if we click on this, you'll have it paint the global or local. So you don't need terrain to paint this. For example, if I go and select like summer, let's preload all of this. It's doing right now, preloading, ecosystem, plants, everything in our collection. Okay. And when it's done, let's just paint. And I'm click paint tool and I'm painting on a normal terrain. So right there, if you can see, I paint on top and I'm paint even little bit overlap on our terrain. So if I have my terrain selected, okay, right there, let's go select my terrain and I move around, see what's happening. Terrain going literally over my plants. Because the one is plants lock to position specific object, and another case plants lock to our global positioning, to the global orientation. And you can do either way. You can plant one way, you can paint one way or another, and usually you can select on the top and you can see left click, it's a global, and right it's paint on select materials. So if this terrain is selected and I right click, I will just paint only on this material and it's a lock to this specific one. So it's kind of different approach. Sometimes maybe you say, hey, why I want access from here, not based on materials, because it's how the ecosystem to what it will lock orientation. It's what base it. So even I'm going right here and I select, let's go ahead, paint material, and I'm start painting. Did I select paint? So you can see it will act a little bit different. So it's paint this on top of my mountain, right there in a corner. And if I'm moving, you can see it does move with my mountain because I says right click, select and lock to this specific object. So this is kind of small things to pay attention, because I notice sometimes people come and says, hey, I paint, and this is true questions. This is I painted, but it's kind of painted. I move my object and it's not there. They're kind of floating. Most likely you gone from top and you left click instead right click, and you don't select properly object. So hopefully it makes sense. Well, thank you for watching this, and we'll see you next time.